this is Mrs. Rita. Welcome to AP Stats, Lesson 9.2b. Our learning target for today is 9.2 number 2. Calculate the standardized test statistic and p-value for a test about a population proportion. All right, learning target number 2 in section 9.2 finally brings us to our calculation step. We've already learned how to do the state, plan, and conclude step, but now we're going to get into our calculation step or the do step. Our standardized test statistic measures how far a sample statistic is away from what we would expect if the null hypothesis was true. We're going to measure this in terms of standard deviations. That is, our standardized test statistic is just a z-score. So our z-score we found way back in chapter 2 when we first learned about normal calculations. If you recall, we often calculated this with an x value minus the mean all over the standard deviation. But we're focusing on population proportions here. So instead of your x, our statistic is a p-hat, a sample proportion. And our parameter, instead of mu, is p-naught, or our hypothesized proportion. And instead of just having a nice little sigma in the denominator, we're looking at our sampling distribution's standard deviation. We learned these back in chapter 7. And so our standard deviation, or standard error for our statistic, is going to be the p-naught times 1 minus p-naught over n, and then take the square root. This is very similar to what we saw for our standard error back in chapter 8 as well with our confidence intervals. But again, instead of using p-hat in our standard error, we are assuming our null hypothesis is true, so we're going to continue to use p-naught for all of our formulas, except when we're asked to plug in a statistic like that first part of the difference in the numerator. So just to emphasize it one more time, you must use your p-naught, not the p-hat, when you're calculating your standardized test statistic. The reason is because we are assuming our null hypothesis is true, so until we prove otherwise, we're going to continue to plug in our hypothesized proportion for our calculations, not the sample proportion. Our standardized test statistic will say how far our sample result is from the null value. If our test statistic is very far from our hypothesized value, that's going to provide more evidence to reject our null hypothesis. But if our standardized test statistic tells us our sample was not that far from our null value, then we do not have convincing evidence. In the past, statisticians used this distance to make the conclusion. But now we're going to be using a p-value. We're going to relate all of our conclusions to the probability of this event occurring. So our p-value from section 9.1, recall, is the probability of getting evidence for the alternative hypothesis as strong or stronger than the observed evidence when the null hypothesis is true. We're going to be doing some normal calculations soon, and you'll be using your calculator, or if you prefer, table A. 9.2, example 1 continued. Recall the example with the administrator at the large high school that suspects the proportion of students at her high school who have a part-time job is less than the national average. Let's do part B and C. Part B, calculate the standardized test statistic and the p-value. These two always come as a pair. And we calculate the test statistic first because that's going to be the boundary when we calculate our normal probability, our p-value. Like all of our calculation steps, we're going to show first our formula, then our substitution, and then our final answer. So our formula for z, our z test statistic, is p-hat minus p-naught all over our standard error. So from up above in the stem of the problem, we find that our p-hat is the 38 over 200. You could write that as the fraction, or if you work it out, you get 0.195. Minus our hypothesized proportion, 0.25, and then our standard error is just the 0.25 times 0.75 over 200, and then all that under the square root. If you crunch that out on your calculator, you get negative 1.80 for your z-score. Our standardized test statistic z here, that negative 1.80, tells us that the value we saw as our sample statistic, the 0.195, is 1.8 standard errors below our hypothesized value. So we want to know, is that unusual? How likely is it that we would get a sample statistic 1.8 standard deviations below our hypothesized value just by chance? We can visualize this by drawing a quick sketch of our standard normal curve, centered at 0, the standardized value, and then our boundary, our z, is negative 1.8. Now, I'm not a computer, so this isn't perfect or to scale, but it does give us an idea of that boundary. So what we want to find for our p-value is how much shaded area is that? What is the probability that we would get a test statistic that extreme or more extreme, so less than in this case? You're always shading the direction of your alternative hypothesis just by chance. So we need to do a normal calculation now. If you need a little review with these normal calculations, go back to chapter 2 in your notes. We did a ton of problems back then. So our p-value ends up being equal to the probability that z is less than or equal to negative 1.80. Looks like a normal CDF problem. And so if we work this out with a calculator, we'll plug in our lower bound, negative E99, or something really, really small. And then our upper bound is the boundary here, our z, negative 1.80. And then our mean and standard deviation are just the 0 and 1 because we standardized our score to a z, so our mean for the standard normal curve is 0 and the standard deviation is 1. We find that our p-value is equal to 0.0359. Well, that's great. So what can we conclude based off of this p-value? That's part C. So the first part of our conclusion is our stat talk. We say because the p-value of 0.0359 is less than 0.05, which is our alpha stated above in the problem, we reject H0. What we're saying is what we saw is very rare. It's very unlikely to occur just by chance. And because it's so unlikely to occur, but we saw this, this is what the data was, this is what the administrator collected from her students in that random sample, because we did see something that was very rare, we're going to reject the null in favor of the second conclusion, our alternative hypothesis, and conclude we think that the students at this large high school do have a lower proportion of students with part-time jobs. Let's write that up. That's the last part of our conclusion, the context. And so in context, we say, we do have convincing evidence that P, the true proportion of all students at this large high school who have a part-time job, is less than 0.25, the national average. Okay, let's just do a little bit more. So what if, let's see, what if instead we found our p-value, this will help you with the homework, and our p-value, totally making this up here, was like 0.08, something, I don't know. So if our p-value is 0.08, the only things that we would change are as follows. We would say, because the p-value of 0.08 is greater than 0.05, our alpha level, and then we'd include, fail to reject H0. That would be your stat talk if you fail to reject and you find out your p-value is larger than your alpha. And then in the context, we'd say we do, well, I'm kind of running out of room right here. We do not have convincing evidence that P, the true proportion of all students at this large high school who have a part-time job, is less than 0.25, the national average. Did you think I was going to change more? You just plug in that not. So in our example, we clearly do get to reject our null hypothesis, our p-value right here. Our p-value was the 0.0359, but I wanted to give you a little extra example for your homework. What happens when you reject the null hypothesis and what happens when you fail to reject the null hypothesis. Pretty soon, we'll put this all together, but that should get you through the day.